we could. Anyway, just welcome to the First Time Home Buyer webinar. I'm Jeff Porter, and I'm with UCCU. I'm going to kind of go over a little bit about myself, and I've got Brett Wild here with me with the Wild Real Estate team from Keller Williams. He's our real estate expert tonight, and we're going to be going through and hopefully answering a lot of your questions and helping you guys understand, the basics of buying a home. We did get a lot of questions from you guys when you signed up, and we're going to try and answer all those questions either during the presentation or at the Q&A at the end, and make sure that we get everybody's questions answered the best we can. We're going to get started. So let's go to the next slide here.
There we go. Hey, so thanks for spending your valuable time. I know you've got a million things tonight, and this is a great time to be getting an education on the basics of real estate, what the process looks like to purchase a home, and all the advantages of doing that. So like Jeff mentioned, my name's Brett. I've been doing real estate now for just over 10 years, and I love it. I love every day. There's always something new to learn. But myself, I've done over 700 real estate transactions, and currently we also own a remodel construction company, and so very unique perspective to understand kind of the builder side plus the real estate side and how it relates to values. But everything about this industry is fun, exciting, and for homeowners, it's so important, the timing, to be able to get in the market and enjoy these low interest rates, and the buying power that you have because of those rates are better than they've ever been before. That affects and benefits you much more than the prices that you're seeing out there. I know are intimidating. So today we're going to focus on walking you through the real estate purchase process, answer all your questions that relates to that, and then Jeff and I will just kind of tag team back and forth as we have questions and content on the mortgage piece as well as the search and the real estate side on that. And so we'll talk a lot about that. But a little bit of background about me too, and kind of why Jeff and I teamed up. We've used a lot of lenders in the past, over the last several years. And I've been really fortunate to meet Jeff and partner with UCCU from the last 3 years about now. Yeah. And it's been really smooth. And I appreciate it because...
Likewise.
Thank you. The experience that you guys have, it's not going to be unique from what you have with Jeff or myself, but it's such an important relationship to have a collaboration together and to be able to achieve the best results. And we've worked with a lot of different lenders, but UCCU has been awesome, and it's been a very smooth process. So I'm excited to be able to be partnered with them. And so we'll tell you about some stories about as we go through today about successes that we've had and failures that we've had personally, that I've had buying homes and trying to navigate this process myself, and some stories that other clients have had. But all in all, we want you to know, especially that Jeff and I are not so much only concerned about you buying another home or buying your first home, but helping you make the very best decisions for the rest of your next several years as you buy and sell homes, because we find that most people buy and sell a home nowadays everywhere between 3 to 4 years. The way the market's going and the way things are changing, it's something that you'll do frequently. And so the more education that you can get and you can learn, not just go through a transaction, but learn the pieces of the transaction, the essentials of lending and then contracts and everything in between, you're going to set yourself up for being a very an affluent and prudent buyer, and you're going to have a whole different outlook on the rest of your life with your retirement and everything else, because 83% of people's retirement comes from their home equity. So we're going to focus on helping you make those decisions as we go. But anyway, that's a little bit about me, and let's hear about you.
Yeah. So we'll go on to the next slide. And I've been doing lending for a really long time, and I decided to go with a little beard here. You can see all the gray hairs that this industry's given me, but it's been a great experience. I love working with all people that are trying to buy homes and whatnot. But first time home buyers, I love helping you guys and really teaching you all the different aspects and different programs that are available out there for you. Here at UCCU, it's really been a wonderful fit for me because I can do everything. You can see on here, I've got the ability to do the FHA, conventional rural housing, and we're going to talk about all of these, but we even do construction loans and investment properties and second homes, and we even have portfolio lending here over at UCCU, which means we'll do a loan that nobody else will do. If it fits, it doesn't fit in the regular industry, we can look at that. So it's a pretty fantastic fit for me because I've been involved in all aspects of lending. I started off in just the consumer side, back with a few banks, and then made my way into mortgage lending, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, and been about 7 years here with UCCU. So I'm looking forward to sharing some knowledge and teaching you guys a little bit about the lending industry. So we'll go right into it. I'll start telling you a little bit about how this works. But, like I was saying before, UCCU, we have every part of mortgage lending that you can imagine. And that is a big benefit. Sometimes you'll go out with a different lender, and that lender doesn't offer a certain product, and you get stuck and they've got to refer you off to somebody else or whatever. We don't have to worry about that here with UCCU. We do it all. So that's a big part of it. And because we're a credit union and we're owned by the members, that's what a credit union is all about, we can offer some of the best interest rates that are out there. And I think you can tune to that. We've done a fantastic job with our borrowers and offering them the best rates that are out there. So people come in, they're pretty excited. And I usually have when we go to the end of the process and you're sitting down with the title agent, they're like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing rate you just got.
Indeed.
So we definitely have fantastic rates over here. There's a thing called mortgage insurance, and we actually have every single mortgage insurance company under our umbrella. So we can go out and shop to every mortgage insurance company and find you the best interest rate if you require mortgage insurance. And that's mortgage insurance less than 20% down. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but I just want to mention it since we're on the slide here. And then, one of the great things is UCCU keeps all of their conventional mortgages. And so if we're doing a mortgage with you here, we're going to end up, and you can go back to that last slide still, but if we do a mortgage for you, you can actually walk into any one of our branches to make a payment because we're going to hang on to that mortgage. You can sit down and talk with somebody individually here at the credit union. And that's a big deal because what normally happens in the mortgage industry is your loan gets sold off. It gets sold off and it can change hands with different servicers 3 and 4 and 5 times out in the secondary market. And it can get a little bit annoying. You'll get this goodbye letter and then you get a hello letter and you're like, oh my gosh, is this real? And you're trying to make phone calls to make sure that, fraud's not going on. You don't have to worry about that with us. It stays here with us. And that's a big deal for people. One of the greatest things is our relationships with our realtor partners. And Brett's one of our absolutely best realtor partners that we have. And that relationship, like we said, we've cultivated over the last 3 years, has enabled us to do some things. And we're going to share something at the very end with you that just for attending this webinar tonight, you guys are going to be able to take advantage of a real nice piece that we've put together. So anyway, I'll save that as a teaser to
nice.
The end.
Yeah, we're going to throw some perks at you here for coming on tonight. But like Jeff said, I have actually personally 4 different houses that I have with UCCU on the mortgage side, and it is super convenient to be able to go in any branch and to be able to make those payments and look at the balance and see all that right there. It's just ties right into the rest of my accounts, and I love it. And so it's been really nice to be able to have that happen. And Jeff and I just closed another one of my deals. And as an investor, you'll learn about this in 2.0, but as an investor, I just locked a rate at 3% on a non-owner occupied home. And so that is just as cheap as I've ever seen it before. And so there's just so many cool things that UCCU's helped me to do, helping our clients do, and in turn is just getting us in such a better financial situation, and just putting us in a situation where we can save more money, where we can get better returns on the moves that we're exploring. But it's been fun to have a partnership that we can have a full dynamic to make these kinds of decisions.
So let's go on to the next slide here, and we'll talk about, like, what does it take to get qualified to buy a house, and that's one of the biggest questions people have. I don't even know where to start. How do I start? What do I do? Well, the biggest thing you need to do is you need to find out not only what you qualify for, but what you would feel comfortable with on a payment. And that's really the most important part of financing, is getting comfortable with that payment. So, there's little things that we have you send to us when you're applying. We'll have you, send us your pay stubs and your W-2s. Maybe it's your tax returns and your bank statements, and we'll look at those things. But what you're doing is getting a pre-qualification, pre-approval application. So we're taking all of your information. We're going to pull your credit report, and we're going to look at the debts that you have. We're going to look at the income you have. We're going to say, based on these things, this is how much you can qualify for. And then we start looking at the different loan products that are available out there. And the loan products, maybe you don't have any money down. So we're going to be looking at an Utah housing loan, which would allow us for first-time home buyers to go in with no money down, out of pocket at all. In fact, it even covers your closing costs. So that's an amazing, amazing product. And funny enough, is it?
Can everybody hear?
I just heard something that maybe you guys haven't been able to hear us. Is anybody been able to hear us here? Are we okay? I'm not listening.
Jeff, I did respond to that, so hopefully they're figuring out their system audio.
Okay. James, go ahead and go to the next slide.
So there we go. Now, Jeff let's get back going. So make comments as you go here, and we'll be paying attention to that too. But talk to us, Jeff. You're talking a minute ago about pre-qualification. There's pre-qualification and pre-approval. What's the difference?
Right. Oh, gosh, you should have hit that one right off the bat. So there's difference between being pre-qualified and pre-approved. Pre-qualified is just simply, hey, we're going to take your information. We'll probably pull your credit, but it's just whatever you tell us, and we're going off what you tell us. It's not a bad thing, but nowadays it's really, really super important to be pre-approved, because sellers want the most qualified person. They want to take that as their accepted offer. And if you're only pre-qualified, you're not pre-approved, most sellers won't accept that anymore. So pre-approval is the next step. That's where we're getting your pay stubs. We're getting your W-2s and your driver's license and your bank statements, and we're verifying every little bit of it to make sure 100% of it's ready to go. So basically, once you get your offer accepted, when you're making an offer on a home, as soon as that accepted, bam, we're basically ready to go straight into the processing, review, and underwriting. So it makes everything go a lot quicker, and it stops us from hitting hiccups or problems before you even get to that point. And it's a real important part of the process. One of the things that we've seen happen is we'll get somebody who maybe has couple different sources of income. Maybe they work a job, but then they have a business on the side. and they're like, hey, I make $2,000 a month on my side business. It's a great deal. It's a great gig. And I'm like, oh, fantastic. Okay. When pre-qualified, we just put in that you're getting $2,000 a month on the side business. But then we get the taxes, and the taxes show a different story. What you can write off so many things on taxes that it may end up coming back and making so you maybe only make $500 a month. Now that changes how much you can qualify for. So it's important for us to look at those things up front, make sure we know exactly what you can qualify for, and so we're not having a hiccup once we get into your offer being accepted and trying to get it through underwriting.
That's right. Now, when you're searching for a home, certainly you guys have talked to friends or family, or maybe you've already been out hunting a little bit and placed offers, and it's brutal. It's the inventory out there. That means how many homes are available to purchase. On a normal market, to give you an idea, you're about 7 or 8 months of inventory that you have to choose from. That means if there were no other homes that come up on the market, it would take 7 or 8 months for all the homes to go under contract or sell. Well, today we're less than a month of inventory. So what that means to you is you're competing against a lot of buyers that want a home, and there's not a lot of options. Interest rates are as low as they've been, and so there's just a lot of people that can qualify for these homes, and there's not enough homes for buyers. And so when you're shopping and you only have a pre-qualification letter, then that's pretty much going to go right to the bottom of the list. As a seller wants to make sure that when he goes off the market, he chooses a buyer to take his home. He can't take the chance that transaction doesn't go through, because it might cost him his family move. It might cost that home that he's been hunting for as well, and he might not be able to get that if his house doesn't sell. So a smart buyer needs to have a good solid team and have a solid pre-approval, so that you go in and that your application's been vetted, your taxes have been verified, your debt income, your credit score, everything has been vetted just as you put on your application. And most savvy sellers and their sellers agents are going to make sure that process has been done before they'll even consider you. And so that's one piece of many as far as strategies to get your offer accepted. But pre-approvals, we can't emphasize enough why those are important and why we need to make sure that you're dialed in, so that you give complete confidence to the sellers and that you're the person that's going to be their best fit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's some long-term strategy in our relationship, in that the more that we as a team have been able to do a great job and show sellers and listing agents that we're closing on time or ahead of time, and that the transaction went well, are willing to accept another offer down the road from another borrower too. So I think we're doing a good job with that. Well, on to this next slide here, we've got credit concerns. Now, I know that a lot of people had entered some questions about credit. And so let's hopefully here answer a few questions about your credit. So once you take your application, like I said, we're going to pull your credit. We're going to take a look at that. And one of the biggest questions is how does that affect my credit score? Well, it usually does affect it about 5 to 7 points. But one thing that's important to know is that you can actually have your credit pulled more than one time by different mortgage companies, where if that happens, once you close on the loan, it's only going to affect your score one time. And a lot of people are like, well, if I better not have it pulled too many times or whatever. Well, if you went out and let's say, you had some other lender pull your credit and then you came to me, you wouldn't have to worry about the fact that's going to, again, affect you negatively. So it's okay to do that. And it's actually something you have to do anyway. Now, what's really great is the credit report is good for 4 months. That's a long time, more than a quarter. So for 4 months, you're going to have the ability to go out there, look for homes, and you don't have to have your credit re-pulled very often. Just once every 4 months is what you'd be looking at. But most of the time, people are finding a home within 4 months. So, we're going to be pretty good in that respect. So what does your credit score need to be? That's always a big, big question. Well, it depends. That's the worst answer anyway, right? But it depends. Minimum score we've got that we can go to is typically a 620 on a credit score. That 620 credit score is using the first-time home buyer program through Utah Housing and allows us to go anywhere between a 620 and a 659 score. Above a 660, they have another product that is better, gets a better interest rate, better pricing, the whole deal. So if you have above a 660, you're looking even better. As you start to go higher, you start getting better and better pricing in different products that'll be available to you. The best credit scores are anything a 740 and above on your credit score is all treated the same. So if you have a 741 or an 800, it's all the same to us. Same score.
That's right.
So, obviously an 800 is fantastic and you got a lot more room to play with if something goes wrong in your life, right? But 740 score is really good. Did you want to address this one?
Yeah, I just want to talk real quick on that. It's okay if your credit is not perfect, and that's not a big deal. It's great if you do have above a 700 because you're going to qualify for the best rates. But as we get to know you guys, your file and your job history and everything about you, we're going to help give you a lot of specific coaching, because in some scenarios, watching the market and understanding rates and where things are at, it may be better for you to take a little bit of a lesser, maybe subprime rate, so to speak, or spend a little bit more on closing costs to get to get in and buy a home, because the home market, as it's been for the last several months.
This is really important. Listen to this.
Yeah, the home market has been increasing so quickly that many buyers are pausing and they're working on their credit, or they're doing things to delay getting in the market, and that delay might cost them 7 or 8% of the homes on average are going up 7-8% a year.
So let's put real numbers to that.
Okay, so say if you bought a $300,000 home, what's 7% of
$21,000?
That's how much it's going up a year. So divide that by 12, and that puts you to what?
Well, that hurts.
Well, that's a little bit harder, right?
Yeah.
So, but the home prices are literally going up thousands of dollars a month. Okay, just an average $300,000 home, and so
1,007.
you're just under $2,000 a month. And so it may be smarter to understand the landscape of the market and what's going on with home prices to decide if it's better to hold back for a minute to do some techniques to get your credit to go up, or other strategies. However, it might be better just to jump in now and take a little bit lower rate or higher points on your mortgage and get in and execute. It really depends, because when I started, I was 23 years old when I bought my first home, and I bought it zero down. I didn't really have a coach like Jeff back then to help me understand. And I didn't get the very best rate. In fact, there was a lot of things that I did. My credit wasn't the best, but the market still was. In 2004, it was still going up pretty well. And so I did enjoy some good appreciation, and I did it with zero down. But I had a coach that I brought on pretty quickly that helped me understand some different scenarios, some different strategies on how to build credit. And just a few here quick to talk to the slide here on how to boost credit. Did you guys know that if you have more than 3 credit cards that are open, that means 3 open lines of credit that are unsecured, that's going to ding your credit. Also, of all your open credit cards, if you have, say, if you have the 3 open credit lines and you go above 50% on your credit limit, so if I have a $2,000 credit card, as soon as I spend $1,001, the credit bureaus are going to ding me for that. Okay. There's also other techniques that we can get into more specific, because we coached you individually to help how to increase that. But you need to get with somebody that can give you all these tips, because if you're close and you can get bumped to the next level, there's a few quick strategies that we can do and get you involved in, so we can get you there. But we need to just have a more specific conversation with you individually, and we can coach you through it. There's a lot of cool things that we can do together.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I like to think of credit as the credit game, quote unquote game, right? If you don't know how to play the game, you're never going to win. And so what we try to teach you is, here's how the game is played. Here are the rules. And if you play the game the way the credit bureaus expect you to play, then you're going to win the game. And winning the game is having a really high credit score. And there's ways to get there. So, yeah, there was a comment here. Did you say having more than 3 credit cards will hurt your credit or help it? No, that hurts it.
Hurts it.
So now, does that mean we want you to go out and start closing a bunch of credit cards? No, because that actually will hurt you worse. Don't close things once you have them. Lines of credit. Don't call in and say, I want to have this closed. Now, if the institution closed you down, let's say you got a Lowe's credit card and you never used it, and Lowe's is like, we don't want to worry about fraud, so we're just going to close this card that's not being used. That's on them. But if you close it individually, that actually affects you in a negative way. So just a little comment to that.
What we want to emphasize tonight more than anything is that all the scenarios that we're talking about is going to be personal and specific to your profile.
Right.
And so when we get off the call, and we'll start scheduling one-on-one appointments with you guys individually so that we can get a financial assessment done and completed. That way we can analyze your specific situation, and then we'll help you build the very best strategy and plan so that we can get you, on the best pace and to meet your goals and requirements, right? So I'll plug this really quick, but this is a book that we'll give you. This is called Buy Confidently, and we wrote it, and it just highlights a lot of these specific questions where we had somebody just ask, about credit cards, and we talked about just some specific examples just now. In this book, there's going to be several examples that goes above and beyond of the brief brush through that we're talking about right now, that just to help you button up that and have confidence on what to do, how long it's going to take, and what strategies that is going to be most relevant, so that we're not, we could spend a lot of time on credit, but there's lots of different stories in here. And we'll give you a copy of this as well as part of being on the webinar tonight. And then there's another book as well that talks about a lot of other financial principles that's just going to help you be stronger buyers and put you in a place where you're really going to be in the driver's seat as you go down the road in home ownership and other investing. And so we'll get really specific with you, we promise. But for tonight, just to stay on target, we'll keep this pretty basic. Yeah.
So the last button on here was debt to income ratios. What do they mean? Well, that sounds like a complicated term. It's not. It's just saying, how many debt payments do you have and how much income do you have? And we're just dividing the two. That's the ratio. And so we look at those to see what you would qualify for. Again, everybody's situation is an own individual situation. And so we would work through that with you. But typically, it's 45% debt to income ratio is the maximum ratio that's allowed, just for those that need to know. So
what that means really quick is your gross income or your household income, how much do you make a year combined? You divide that by 12, so you take your monthly gross income and then take your expenses out of that number. Then 45% of that number is what they'll let you pay towards your monthly mortgage. Okay, so that's a very brief. You're right, your total payments.
Yeah.
After that's deducted, then it's 45% of that, right? You want to clarify that?
Okay, so you take your total gross income.
Mm-hmm.
For the year, divide that by 12, and that gives you a monthly amount. You times that number by 0.45,
right,
and that's the total amount that you can have, including all of your car payments, credit cards, and the new mortgage payment that you're going to have. So if you're below that number, you're typically going to qualify.
Perfect.
So
now you guys have seen the billboards. There's a lot of them going up and down I-15 that display the interest rate. Okay. And you'll get pop-ups as you're searching for homes. There's different lenders show different rates, and that's very common. It's easy to get distracted because there's always somebody else that's going to give you a better rate. And so keep in mind that there's a lot of different ways to manipulate that rate. And any lender you talk to is going to basically focus in on what's most important to you, whether it's the lowest closing cost or the lowest interest rate. They can tweak their equation or the package that they're looking at and give you whatever you want to hear. So it's really important to understand how these rates and how the closing costs are configured and comparing apples to apples so that you know how to shop that. And I can tell you right now that based off all the clients that we work with and my own personal homes that I purchased, I like to make sure I'm getting the very best deal, and not only that, who I have the most confidence with. So just know that you can't always rely on just what you see on a quick advertisement. You need to go through and do an application and really understand debt to income, what your credit score is, how much down payment you have, and there's a lot of different things that go into that to factor what that rate's going to look like. But that's why it's important to get that pre-approval done, because it really looks over the whole big profile.
Yeah, and that's part of this team effort we keep talking about is as you're going through these initial processes, we're really going to sit down and customize it to your own personal situation and go through the different programs that'll work for you as an individual. So even though, if you remember at the beginning, we had all these different loan programs, well, you're really only going to probably fit into one or two of those programs, and based on your particular situation. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about the pros and the cons of those different programs and explain to you why we might recommend one over the other. And this slide is just talking about, qualifying income. We just talked about that with the debt to income ratio. Your monthly debt obligations, those are the ones that are reporting to the credit report. So one of the things that's not included are your utility bills, your cell phone, these outside things. Only the ones that you're actually that are reporting to a credit report is what we're going to count as a debt obligation. So keep that in mind if because all of us have a cell phone, right? And you may have a little more expensive plan than somebody else. We don't take that into consideration. And that's why the debt to income ratio is at 45%. And, it isn't a higher number because they want to take into account that you still need to buy groceries. You still need to, pay for your cell phone and these other things. Car insurance, there's another one too.
Sure.
Down payment options. So as I briefly hit on in one of the beginning slides, if you put down less than 20%, you're going to have to pay mortgage insurance. The majority of people don't put 20% down or more. The majority of people do a 3% or 5% down program. And I even have a large percentage of people that take advantage of that first-time homebuyer program that's 100% financing. So don't worry that your situation is, oh my gosh, I don't have any money for a down payment, or I don't want to use all of my money towards a down payment. You don't have to. There are options out there, and what we will do is go through those different options as we talk to you individually. So know that you don't have to put 20% down, because I think a lot of people, when they first get into the home buying process, they're like, oh, there's no way this is ever going to work for me, because I've been told by my mother, brother, dad, grandpa that I have to have 20% down. You don't have to have it. So be aware of that. And mortgage insurance is just something that is required as part of that, but we'll talk about the total payment, and it's not that much. It doesn't add that much to your payment. It's very little. In a lot of cases, we'll see, like a $50 added, or 25 or 30. So, what we want to do is we want to go through the total payment on a particular property, what that's going to be for what you're interested in buying, and say, okay, here's where that payment's going to be. Maybe it's $800, maybe it's $2,000 for your particular situation. And you can see that, oh, that will work for my budget, or it won't work for my budget. And then we'll customize what you want to go look for out there in the market based on what you feel comfortable with on a payment. And that's the most important part, because you're going to know more than anybody what's important for your budget, what feels comfortable for your budget, and we want you to make sure you feel comfortable, because the worst thing we can do as a real estate team is have you get into a home where now you can't even go out to dinner because every cent you have has to go towards making your mortgage payment. So just know that we're looking out for your best interests on that.
That's right. That's that bottom piece. Being house poor, I think many of us has been there. I've been there, and it's not fun. And so, yeah, we're going to have your back to make sure that you're not spending more than you should. But at the same time, don't be too conservative on the fact that you want to make sure to accumulate at least 20%, because if you're far from that, you very well could be better off just to get in now with 3% down. You're going to pay that mortgage insurance, but if you can lock in a rate at 2.5 to 2.75%,
Yeah.
let me put that in perspective for you. Let's go back off a $300,000 purchase price. For every $300,000 that you purchase, let's just say that the rate went from 4 to 5%. Okay. If from that 1 point jump, 4 to 5%, you're spending $66,000 more for that same home over 30 years.
For the life of the loan.
And so people
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
$66,000.
How long does it take for a home to appreciate $66,000? It's, that's going to take a couple of years. And even then, that's at a market that's just skyrocketing. And so we're not talking going from 4 to 5, like the example I used. We're talking going from 4 to 2.5. And so
a year ago, the rates were 4.5.
They were, yeah.
Exactly. They have gone down 2%. It's a crazy time. And we haven't hit on this, but one of the most important things when buying a home is if you can take advantage of a low interest rate, you can afford more because the payment's less and you're paying so much less over the time of the loan. So to take advantage of these really low interest rates that we have right now is just paramount. It's so important.
Yeah.
So
cash flow wise too, on the being house poor, those rates being so low, on that same $300,000 example I gave you, instead of talking about the life of the 30 years, if you reflect and look at it just payment wise, you're less than $220. You're about $218 to $220 a month difference on that 4 to 5% rate. So again, I don't have it calculated in my head going from 4 to 2.5%, but you're talking about a big difference just because that rate is giving you, everything's on sale right now. So think about it that way. Focus on those rates. Don't get too caught up about the prices.
Everything's on sale. It's so true. Well, all the people that I did loans for last year, what are they doing right now? They're refinancing to a lower rate.
That's right.
So getting into a home at a lower rate is just fantastic. Yeah, we already hit all this. Well, let's go to the next slide on here.
Perfect. We got a little delay here in our slide switch over here. So
there we go. So a couple of just other key points here. I think a lot of people have heard, oh, I need to get a fixed rate, or what, or really actually the question, what is an adjustable rate? I hear about these adjustable rates. Well, fixed rate is you're going to get into that at an interest rate that, say, the 2.5%, like you said, and it's going to be 2.5% for the life of the loan. It never changes. An adjustable rate mortgage is also referred to as a hybrid option arm or arm. Anyway, these programs are you're locked in at a lower rate. Say instead of 2.5, or maybe you're locked in at 2.25 or 2 for 3 or 5 years, and then it changes to a fixed rate or an adjustable rate after that. And when it hits the adjustable rate, that means it can go up and it can climb at a certain amount per year for the life of the loan. So those are a little bit, people don't like to get into them. Right now, the difference between an adjustable rate and a fixed rate mortgage is so minimal. Almost everybody's just doing a fixed rate. But I wanted to explain that to you. Adjustable rates are just like they sound. They are fixed for a small period of time, and then they become adjustable and start adjusting after that. And typically, they will go up. Conventional loans, that is, you probably heard the names Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Those are the governing bodies over all of conventional lending. So all the rules out there apply to all the lenders out there, and they all flow down from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Conventional loans, they have 3 to 5% down options. But once you get down below 20%, then you no longer have to pay mortgage insurance. Now that's a really important key because, as we're going to talk about in a minute, FHA loans don't do that. You have to pay the mortgage insurance for the life of the loan on an FHA loan. Sometimes it does say here stricter guidelines, but it really kind of depends because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac over the last year and a half have really loosened up on a lot of guidelines. And one of the most important things they're doing right now, which is incredible, is they're doing appraisal waivers on not only refinances, but purchases. So you may make an offer on a home that's had an appraisal done in the last couple of years. And if the value seems reasonable to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, when we run it, they will give you a waiver. You don't even have to get an appraisal done. So that saves you time and money, which is kind of neat. Now, would you do that in every circumstance? Not necessarily. You may want to get an appraisal just to make sure that you feel comfortable about the value. And a lot of people do, but just something to be aware of there. Now, the FHA loan, we're going to slip here to another slide, but the FHA loans, they require 3.5% down. So a little bit more than the conventional, which is only 3% down. They do have some kind of interesting guidelines that allow us to do things for some people that can't be done with others, but they can give you a better interest rate slightly, but they're more expensive in the fees. So an FHA loan, this is important for everybody to know, has an upfront mandatory fee that is added to the fees of 1.75%.
That adds up quick, doesn't it?
That's a lot of money. That adds up.
So
really.
300,000. That's
it's 1,750 for every $100,000.
Okay.
So $3,500 on 200,000. I can't do the math. So $4,200 on 300,000, something like that. Anyway, it starts to add up. Now, they don't make you come to close with that money out of pocket, but what they do is add that to the loan amount at the end, but not change your down payment requirement. So they're tricky. They throw it in there, and what they're saying is, hey, if these people sell their home in the average time of about 5 years, we're going to collect that extra money, which they do. So it's a business decision where they're giving you a little bit better on the interest rate. They may have some programs to get you into this a little bit better than maybe conventional does, but in the long run, you're going to pay more money on this particular product. So it does fit a need, and it is a good product. It's just a little bit expensive. Utah Housing is a great program. It uses an FHA loan-backed loan as part of their program. So that as we talk about no down payment or down payment assistance programs, this is one of the biggest ones that is used. And what they do is they do a first-second combo mortgage, a first mortgage to 96.5%, and a second mortgage to 6%. Well, wait a minute, that's more than 100%. Yes, it is. 96.5 plus 6 is 102.5% financing. So what's the extra 2.5% for? Well, there's two things that go into buying a home. First, your down payment, and second, your closing costs. Well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is if you have 100%, or if you have to put 3% down or 3.5% down, that means down payment portion. Okay, so help me out here, Brett. So we got 3.5% of a $200,000 loan. Let's do that. 200,000 times 3.5% is $7,000. Okay, so you got $7,000 that you'd normally have on a regular FHA loan plus closing costs. Closing costs would probably be about $5,000, we'll say. So now you've got 7 plus the 5. You have $12,000 you'd have to come to close with in order to close that regular FHA loan. Now on a Utah Housing loan, that's different. There's no down payment because that's being covered between the first and the second mortgage, and that 2.5% extra is going to cover your closing costs. So not only do you not have a down payment, but you no longer have closing costs on this. And this is why that is such a great, great program for people who are looking to get into their first home and don't have any money really to come in to close with. And we use this all the time for folks. It is a great, great loan. So anyway, hopefully that answered that question there.
So let's switch gears just a little bit here for a minute. A lot of what we just talked about on these last two slides, there's a lot of detail. Okay, there's a lot of different loan programs. I guess we'll switch back gears because we can talk about VA loans and USDA loans, but these are basically for if you're a veteran or you're rural. That means in here in Utah specifically, if you're anywhere west of the Jordan River, so that's like Saratoga Springs, west of there. There's areas
south of the Spanish Fork River.
South of the Spanish Fork River. Then there's other areas in Utah that qualify for this, that basically you can get a loan with zero down, but there's pros and cons of each. So as we look and search for homes together, we'll put you in the right fit, but let's understand your profile after we do that assessment, and we'll drive you and put you in the very best scenario. But I don't think you need to get too specific and understanding all the ins and outs of all this, but it is important to understand.
No, because everybody's going to be different. I totally agree with that. Just as a quick comment about these VA and USDA loans, it's important for you to know that those are 100% financing options also. They don't cover your closing costs on those two loans, but they are great programs. So if you were going out and wanted to buy in the Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs area, or south part of the valley, south of Spanish Fork, that USDA loan might be the best loan because it's just a good loan. But we would look into that. We would look at where you want to buy, what you're trying to do, and determine that on an individual basis. So. That's well, right. Bam, here we're going to go right into the actual real estate professional, which is Brett.
I'm going to tell you a little story here real quick. I mean, I like to start off usually telling you this story, but part of why I got into real estate, okay, several years ago, I just graduated college. I read a lot of the real estate investment books, and I was excited. I finally had verified income. And so I was able to get a loan. I didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't have a strong down payment. So I had to find somebody that helped me through that scenario. And but I wanted to get going. But yet I didn't have, being my first time buying a home, I didn't have a strong education, and I didn't have a lot of people coaching me. And so I was on the job for about a month. And so I started working at a really good job out of college. I had about a $35,000 a year salary, which to me was a mountain of money. But I was driving my route. I was a sales rep for a Fortune 500 company. I was driving my route one day, and I was passing through the frontage road over here by UVSC at the time. And maybe it was whatever the school used to be in between the names it's gone through. I was passing on 1200 North, and I saw a for sale by owner sign on the front of the yard. And it's just seemed perfect. It met all the requirements and all the things I'd read about in these real estate investing books. And I was eager to get going. I picked up the phone. I picked up the phone. I called the number. Didn't answer. And so I walked up to the front door, tapped on the door. And sure enough, a gal came out, answered the door. And I introduced myself. I said, "Hey, my name's Brett. You don't know me, but I was passing by your home and I noticed you're selling it. Can I see it?" So she opens the door, we walk in, and quickly I just, I thought, well, maybe the house isn't perfect. I don't really know what to look for. I just know it's in a great area. And there was a price, when she told me how much it cost, it was $160,000, and I could afford it. Through, we talked about the price. She kind of showed me around, and we kind of verbally shook on a deal, so to speak. And I said, well, listen, I've never done this before. I'm going to call my lender. I'm going to see if they can give me the money. And then I'll call you back. We'll figure out how we can get back together and make this happen. So I was thrilled. So I called my lender, and I knew a guy, and he said, yeah, we can qualify you for that amount of money.
This is before I met Brett, so it was somebody else.
Yeah, it was somebody else. I wish I'd known you back then, because it would have made my life a lot easier. But I had an education. I went to college. I thought I knew enough information reading what I did. And so I said, well, I don't need to hire anybody. I'm going to save myself some money and not hire an agent, because, from what I heard, it's going to cost me an extra 3% if I go and hire a buyer's agent to buy a home. Right. So I call back Danette, was the seller's name. And I say, hey, listen, let's do this. I'm excited about it. My lender just told me I'm approved. And she says, oh, hey, I feel really bad about this, but I just got to tell you that somebody else came right after you did. And I told them about you, and I told them that we kind of made a commitment together, and they left me this little handwritten note just so I could show it to you, but they're willing to pay $10,000 more for the house. So if you want to pay more than that, then I'll still honor our deal and you can buy it from me. And so I was competitive and I was kind of young and naive. I hadn't gone through the experience yet. I said, well, listen, all right, whatever, Danette, I'll come over. Let's just make it work. What do we do now? And she says, well, I already have a contract that I can help fill out. Just come over, right away and we'll fill that out. And so I rushed over and we went through and she basically had the contract. She started filling it all out and it seemed good to me. We agreed on a price. We wrote it in and it was $10,000 over what we shook on. She started writing some other things in there that I didn't really understand what it was, which she was just kind of filling in the blanks, but I trusted her. So fast forward now a month. That's how long it took to get my loan done. I move into this home. I spent all the money I had in my account, my savings, to pay for my low down payment, or my down payment. Plus I had to come up with closing costs. So I basically almost emptied out everything I had to be able to close on that deal. Well, it's pretty awesome. When I was so excited to leave the title company, I go over there. She texted me, said, here's where the key is. So I got the key. I go in the house. I go up the stairs. All the appliances are missing. And so I'm like, well, she told me the fridge, that's, the stove and the microwave, everything was supposed to be here. Where are they? I start calling her. She doesn't answer the phone.
Ghosted you.
Yeah, ghosted. Awesome. So I'm starting to be a little bit concerned. And then it was, I think we were in July because I remember it was hot. So I go in, I start fiddling with the dial on the wall that was the swamp cooler. And I turn it on and I start hearing all this noise up in the roof and water starts coming out of the swamp cooler and it was not normal. Okay. So then I go around the rest of the house and I started finding these little things that she never told me about. Well, you guys are smarter than I am. You're listening right now saying, well, Brett, duh, why didn't you get a home inspection? Right? I didn't know what a home inspection was. And I didn't get a home inspection. And I wish I had, because I literally had to spend, over the next 6 months, I spent over $10,000 on fixing major problems that had to be resolved to live in that house. And not only that, I had to buy appliances and I had to buy things that should have been included in a standard purchase contract that she either removed or I didn't know that it was supposed to be included. So, and all the while, what's the best part about it, knowing what I do now, is had I hired an agent and brought them to the transaction, most likely she would have paid my agent to be a part of that, because any home that's listed on the MLS or listed on most sites already includes a buyer's agent fee on that. Okay. So I actually wasn't saving money at all by not using one. I was just putting more money in her pocket. Okay. So knowing that and knowing all the problems I went through because I thought I was saving money, it kind of stung and it hurt.
Kinda.
Yeah. And being, I was 23 years old and I just got done paying college off and I didn't have anything. And so it hurt a lot worse than it really could have. Right. I mean, it wasn't fun, but I learned something from it and I'm glad I did. But anyways, a different about that story that part of what we wrote in that book there that you'll learn from, and a lot of other stories too of clients and first time, second time home buyers. We've all collectively have gone through so many different things, and there's so many specific steps of why hiring an agent to help you get your first home or your second home is so important, because things that you don't have to worry about. The only time that there's a few scenarios when you don't have maybe that the buyer agent fee isn't included. And so in my scenario, I bought a home directly from a for sale by owner. It wasn't a listed property by another brokerage or another agent. And those are there are some scenarios where that fee may not be included. But with our team over the last 10 years, we have helped several people buy homes directly from for sale by owners. And I can't think of the last time where we didn't come to an agreement and have the seller include that fee inside of the price, so you're not paying more. In fact, in the last 2 years, 98% of every single buyer, they may not have started with an agent, but they finished with an agent, and the sellers ended up paying for it anyway. So, yeah, that's
well. Can you speak to that a little bit, just real quick?
Mm-hmm.
You said the seller pays for it anyway.
That's right.
So just explain that just a little more in detail.
So when a seller lists their home for sale, it gets listed on the MLS and on all these different sites that you see. They've already agreed beforehand to work with a brokerage, and a listing package has been put in place where there's a seller's commission and there's a buyer's commission, and that you hear a lot, 6% or 3% and 3%. That percentage, that full percentage, is already included in that price, and so that's where that money is generated. And it's when you see the price online as a buyer, there's not anything in addition that you have to pay if you get an agent to help you buy a home.
So if you go to I'm just going to bring this up.
Sure.
Because I don't know how that works with you, but so if you go to a home and you don't have an agent that you've hired to work with you yet, and you go to a home and there's a listing agent there, you walk into a home, they're having a what's it called?
An open house.
An open house.
Sure.
You go in an open house and you're like, oh, this is our house. This is the house we want. And listing agent's like, great. Well, are you working with an agent? You go, no. He goes, that's fine. I can work with you. And he would represent, or she would represent, both sides of that transaction, because that listing agent has already come up with an agreement with the seller that they're going to cover a certain amount of money for the seller and the buying agent. So if there isn't a buyer agent, you don't have an agent that's representing you, they will take that part. So there are a lot of really good agents out there who will, work both sides and truly take care of both sides of the transaction, and they do a good job. But from a personal perspective, I would want just one agent representing me and have nothing to do with the seller, because I want them to have my best interests at heart. That's my personal feeling with that. So just something to think about as you're going out there. Hiring an agent to help you find and buy a home is a super smart way for me from my perspective, because they're going to help you negotiate it. Are you a really good negotiator? Maybe you are. And maybe you feel like you would want to be the negotiator, but in most cases, you'd want a professional that does it on a daily basis, especially in the industry that maybe you're not familiar with, to go and negotiate and get you the best deal that you can as a buyer going into a transaction. And I think it's important to realize is that, this is very much probably the biggest transaction that you'll ever do. You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars at once. I mean, imagine going and buying 10 cars all at the same time. That would be a little daunting. Well, price-wise, I mean, you're talking brand new cars. That's what you're doing. And you need professional help. And I just feel like it's really important to have an agent that represents you when you do that. So anyway, I could probably come up with a bunch of other analogies, but
yeah, we can talk about this for quite a while on this particular theme. But like Jeff said, do yourself a favor and go find somebody that you trust, because the person that you can feel confident with is going to guide you through this. We're going to talk about this in a second, but there's a lot of competition, and so using the right strategies in order to get your home, your contract, your offer accepted, it's essential. It's crucial right now, because most homes, ones that you're going to want, there's 5 other people that's going to want that same home. And the way you position your offer and how you go about that is vital to get yours accepted. And it's not fun out there being in the bloodbath, but we got to get you through and execute an accepted contract as fast as possible while these rates are low. But anyway, so there's some scenarios.
I just want to give you a little plug. Their team are doing very, very unique strategies right now that are getting their buyers under contract that I haven't seen. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah, and we're developing more and more all the time, and we'll talk some about the Wild team specifically and our uniquenesses, just like UCCU talked about theirs. But anyways, get a good coach, understand the best way to be competitive, and just know how it works. But do know and have confidence that you don't pay an extra fee in order to use a buyer's guide or professional. So there's some things there. This site here, finding the right home. How do you go about it? Okay. We talked about open houses for sell by owners on those stories I told you. Again, when you walk into an open house, you should see open houses. That's a really smart thing to do. And there's houses that you may not have seen online go in there and look at them, and don't feel like you always have to be waiting. If you have an agent that's not as responsive, go ahead and go through there. Just make sure when you go in, you let them know who you're working with. Because what you're doing is basically setting up that listing agent to make both sides of the deal, and he's interested only or mostly in the seller. He has the seller's interest in mind, and so you want to be aware of that. It's good to go into builders model homes, and if you want to stop in there, great idea. Make sure you get a card or a stack of cards from your agent and let them know ahead of time what's going on so that you get protected. We have a lot of different unique tools on our end to be able to evaluate what properties are actually worth compared to similar properties that have sold recently, and just a lot of detail.
Why is that important?
So you're not overpaying, right?
Right.
And so how do you know that you're paying the right amount of money for the home that you're purchasing? There's a lot of different tools that we use, the same tools that appraisers use, and that's generated from the MLS. Okay, let's bump down here and talk about Zillow and what Zillow is, and then I'll tie that back in together. Zillow, everybody on this call today knows what Zillow is, and Zillow has the biggest budget out of any different search site out there for homes. Who's their customer? Have you ever paid Zillow to log in and create a login membership with their site? It doesn't happen. The reason why is because Zillow collects a fee, or for every zip code in the whole country. You'll notice on the column on the right-hand side of the site, there'll be 4 or 5 different agents that constantly pop up in the feed. Each one of those agents are paying several $1,000s, depending on the impressions that they get per zip code per month. And so Zillow loves real estate agents because we're the ones that are paying the freight on them for them, right? And so real estate agents, since they're paying all this money for advertising on Zillow, they're counting on you to get on their site to look through the homes, which, by the way, the Zillow site has the best interface, hands down, versus anything. I love the usability and the way it's all presented. It draws your eye, and people like to use Zillow for that reason. Just know that once a house goes under contract or sold, since these agents are paying money to advertise with Zillow, they want to get the best return and get the most leads. They'll leave their homes on Zillow even after they've gone under contract or sold.
So true.
It's kind of
it's
a fun little game that buyers get to play, and I call it the brain damage of purchasing or searching, because you get on with your family or your spouse,
and you're like, oh, here's the home for us, and then you find out it's already been sold like a month ago.
Yep. Has that happened to any of you? And so that we get these calls all the time. Brett, there's this house, I found it on Zillow. I love it. Can we get in? So I'll call and verify with the seller. Probably 30 to 40% of the time, it's already under contract or sold, and it's deflating because we have to call back that buyer and say, hey, I'm so sorry, that one's already gone. And so we go through this exercise, and it's just discouraging. And so no, that's what's going on, is because there's sellers and agents out there that are keeping their inventory there because they want your calls, they want to create a dialogue, and then they're going to put you in their database after that conversation if you're calling those agents directly, and you're going to get followed up with consistently, and pretty soon your phone is blowing up so bad you don't even want to answer it anymore. So Zillow, that's how Zillow works. There's other sites. There's a lot of sites like Homey. There's Coldwell Banker and Remax and Keller Williams, and there's hundreds of brokerages. These brokerage sites all syndicate, is the word. They basically generate listings from the multiple listing service, the MLS, which is utahrealestate.com. Okay, so all these different sites, including our team sites, wildteam.com, we basically take the direct source from the MLS, and we're marketing everybody's listings, including our own, on that site. So the best thing you could do is find someone that you trust, get on their site, because there's other search criteria. There's specific things like, do you want a mother-in-law apartment, or do you want a fenced yard, or is there different specifics that you can't calibrate on Zillow or the user side of utahrealestate.com? We've got a lot more tools that we can feed you. Plus, we're actually partnered with UCCU on a different site called Utah Home Buzz,
right?
Which we've just launched that recently, and that's phenomenal. But it's other listings that we get that aren't even listed yet. we have a huge database with the amount of volume that our team does, that we have a lot of pocket listings or listings that you haven't even seen yet that we can give you access to as kind of a preliminary look as they're getting ready to list. And so there's a lot of advantage there. Okay, so that's kind of how the search sites work. Another tool, we can put you on hot sheets so that once we calibrate your criteria, you don't have to go and chase into, your phone after lunch break and try to see if anything new's come up. We just put you on an automatic feeder. So every time a home comes up that's available, you're definitely going to see those homes, and you're not going to have to rely on logging in each time. It just feeds you an email right when those come up. So another thing about why and who you hire. Okay. So inventory is low. It's competitive out there. It's just, there's a lot of need to have a strong strategy. But at the same time, when you're going to buy homes, just know that there's other people that want to buy those homes too. Yeah. And so you've got to know how to position yourself, how to write the best offer, those key strategies. We actually employ over 6 strategies now that we use, and we have a very high success rate on getting those offers accepted. And you can't miss out on those. If you don't use these strategies, you're not going to be able to compete with these other offers. There's a lot of savvy buyers out there. Another thing that's important, know and understand the uniquenesses, the background, the skill set of the team, of the agent, of the brokerage, of who you choose. For example, we have a remodel side of our business, and we have remodeled hundreds of homes. And we've custom built, before I did real estate full time, we've custom built just under 100 custom homes in Utah and Salt Lake Valley. And so if you ever like watching that HDTV, those shows, Fixer Upper, Property Brothers, these types of shows, that's how we're set up. What does that mean to you is when you go out and look at homes and there's sparse inventory and there's not a lot of options. If we can evaluate each home and you can say, well, listen, Brett, this is an 8 out of 10 in the neighborhood. I love the school district. I needed to be, in Legacy Elementary because they do Spanish immersion. And so everything here works out, but I just can't handle the kitchen's too small, or, I don't like that barrier, that load bearing wall between the kitchen and the living room. I want a more open floor plan. Those are things right there that with the right help, we can coach you on exactly what it's going to take to put a girder truss up inside of the ceiling, open up that wall, give you a nice flow through, create that dynamic that you want for your guests. We can work through a lot of these problems where a lot of buyers are just passing by those homes, and a lot of times those are the best deals to pick up, because those are homes that sat on the market for a while, and now the sellers are going to potentially give those up at a discount. So anyways, understand what your team or your brokerage is going to offer and how they're going to get you to win. So there's a lot of things that as we meet one-on-one and we talk, we're going to give you a lot of guidance and specifics and a lot of different perks. Not only what we're going to let you know at the end of the call, but we do free moving services. We've got several moving trucks and dump trailers. And so there's just a lot of things if you can hire the right team, not just to focus on today's transaction, who's going to help you have the very best financial outlook over the next several years and make it as smooth. And just your journey of real estate is going to put you in a different place in the rest of it. You can do this correctly, and you can use the right, have the right coach, really. I talked a lot about that.
Yeah. By the way, technology wise, I didn't realize, but I didn't have the Q&A up. So we'll go back and answer a few of these questions at the end. We're just about done with a few things here, but I'll let Brett continue on, and we're almost done with this part.
Okay. 5 key strategies. When we speak one-on-one, okay, we're gonna delve into that a lot more specifically. I mentioned that book that we'll give you. It's going to cover that. Okay. What's earnest money? So let's talk about placing an offer. So whenever you decide you like a home, I tell people if you're a 7 or a 10 out of, and that's how you feel about a home, you probably ought to consider placing an offer, because when you place an offer on a home, you're not getting married to this house yet. Okay. You're basically just saying, listen, let's go out on a few more dates. and let's get engaged, and let's just see how we really feel about each other. And you're going to have a chance to test drive it. Okay. So don't get too scared to place an offer and go under contract, because we have a few different revisions or key points in that contract that's going to protect you. So two parties come together, we put in the offer. The first thing that you need is consideration, and that's called earnest money. So most people put between $1,000 and $5,000 of earnest money. That's just money that's deposited. It will clear your account. It's going to get placed in the brokerage account, into our trust account.
Well, what happens to that money?
So that money is the brokerage. So if I'm your agent, I'm going to put that in our Keller Williams brokerage account, and that's going to clear your account, but it's basically going to be held there as to ensure that you as the buyer and the seller both conform and comply to the agreement on the contract. If you don't do what you said you're going to do, the seller is going to get that earnest money. If the seller doesn't do what they say, they're going to have to give that back to you, and you even have the option to not accept their earnest money and instead say, no, I don't want your earnest money, but you can even add up all the damages that you accrued to get to that point, and you have other options. So we can guide you through what's best for you, but that's what the earnest money does.
Well, what I wanted to bring up was at the end of the program, that let's say you put $1,000 in earnest money down, that $1,000 actually goes off of the mortgage, either towards the down payment or the closing costs. So it's not money that just randomly goes to the seller. It's part of the actual transaction itself. So if you had $5,000 that you were left with to come to close, and you had $1,000 in earnest money, now you would only have to come to close with $4,000, if that makes sense.
That's right. So that earnest money, as long as you perform with your end of the deal, it gets applied towards your purchase price. So it's money that's used in your behalf. So that's how that works. Now, there's a couple things that we'll talk about next. Well, let's hit on this. Conclusions. What are inclusions? Remember I told you the story about how I walked into the home, there's no appliances. There's no fridge, microwave. Fridges are not always included. You have to ask for those if you want it. But the microwave, as long as it's bolted into the house, if it's fixed, which is usually above the stove, that's included in the boilerplate contract in our state, because it's a fixture. Basically, think about it this way: if you were to take a house, flip it upside down, and just shake it, everything that stays on or attached to the house is automatically included. Your dishwasher's included, your stove and range is included. And so when I walked in that house, I mean, I was just thinking like, well, I thought they were included, but had I known, I could have gone right back, hired a real estate attorney, shouldn't have even had to do that. But I had a lot more leverage than I realized. I could have got all those appliances back, and I didn't. But those appliances are included. Then anything else that we specifically add in on the contract that the seller agrees to, those are now included as part of the deal. So deadlines. You're going to have different deadlines that we'll talk about on the next slide. You can switch that now. But those deadlines are associated with the contract. Your first one is the seller disclosures deadline. Okay, usually that's 2 to 3 days once you go under contract. The seller is required to send a packet to you as a buyer, and we'll review that. Basically is a 7-page document that's going to highlight everything they know about the property, any damages that's occurred, any insurance claims they've ever made, anything about the HOA, or anything that the whole idea here is to get all their information from them, and you have it now so that you can use that as part of your due diligence. Okay, I never received that for sale by owner transaction. Earnest money directly, and I didn't even know that was a thing. So she just asked me to write her a check to hold it. So I'm like, well, sure. So I gave it to her directly. That's a big no-no. And so anyways, I basically didn't have any leverage at all because I didn't know what earnest money even did or what it was for. And so there's a lot of things I wish I'd known. So anyways, I told you about the inspection piece. Once you have your seller disclosures deadline, you're going to be able to, you usually have about 2 weeks, but whatever that date that you put on that contract, what people agreed to, you're going to have 2 to 3 weeks of due diligence. And that's your opportunity to conduct an inspection. Okay, we're going to recommend 2 or 3 good, solid home inspectors that's going to go and test drive your home. They're going to check out all your electrical and plumbing. They're going to get on the roof. They're going to run some cycles in the dishwasher. They're going to turn on all the faucets in the shower and the tub, make sure there's no leaks under the sinks. they're basically going to do all the things that I wish that somebody would have did for me, so that you don't walk in after you spend all your money and you have all these problems. Now, is an inspection going to give you the 100% perfect answer? Maybe not. They might miss things here and there, but isn't it better to at least have that done? It's going to cost you about $500 to $600, but they're going to test for anything you want tested. They're going to be able to, there's tools nowadays that they can literally do an infrared camera on your walls.
See if there's any water.
Is there any water coming out?
In some cases, mostly water.
Yeah. The biggest enemy to your home is water intrusion. That's what causes mold. That's what causes mold spores, sickness, and then water damages sheetrock. It damages carpet. There's so many bad things that come from not having leaks or your roof not tight. They're going to test drive this and make sure you're set. We're going to take all those results and we're going to review those together, and we're going to make a list of all the things we're concerned about. Then, based off our due diligence, as long as our contract's contingent upon due diligence, we're going to have the opportunity to go to that seller and say, listen, we found 5 things. We're not comfortable with these things. We want you to fix these things or give us money back or off the price so that we can take care of it. If you, as a buyer, aren't happy with those results, guess what? You get to cancel the contract, and all that money you put in as earnest money, that's what that's for. That gets refunded right back to you, and you have 0 penalty. That's why I said before, if you're a 7 or an 8 out of 10, and with this market and how hot it is, offer on the home. Let's look into it more and more. Let's see how you feel the next day, because a lot of times, it's amazing how much different you feel when you take the pressure of the competition and all the other buyers that you see opening, coming in and out of the door. When you can get those off your back and you can really ponder on how you feel about this potential home, you're going to get a better understanding of if you're feeling good and confident. So that's all designed in the due diligence process. Okay.
Well, I think it's important the inspection gives you leverage. It gives you the leverage to negotiate with the seller, and part of that is the earnest money that you put in. That's giving you the leverage as well. So having a buyer agent representing you and doing these things correctly gives you the leverage to be able to negotiate correctly and have a transaction happen that is good for both parties.
That's
both
good.
The seller and the buyer, because it shouldn't be a one-way thing here. The seller shouldn't be able to spell out what they want, and you as the buyer should have some ability to have a say in things, and that's what this whole process, I feel like, is about. So
yeah, it should always be a win-win. And so, but you need to go through the process, right? If you're buying a townhome or an investment property, a condominium, there's an HOA, and you've heard of that. An HOA is basically when there's multiple homes that are fixed to each other that share, part of the exterior structure of the roof. And so there's some shared expenses. But if you're going to get into a situation, which is great, just make sure you understand how healthy that HOA is. You've heard of stories where there's been big lawsuits in different communities in the area.
And as a lender, we have to check all of these things. So we get a certification. And then we also, and then that certification, it lists if there's any lawsuits or whatnot, and we go through those, we review them, we look at their budget to make sure that whoever's financially handling that HOA budget, that it's in check. And so know that that's part of your team and part of what we're doing as well.
Yeah, very important things. Financially, once you wind this thing up and you close this deal and you've taken title, problems after the fact, it's really hard. It's hard to unwind that. You don't really get to unwind it. You basically get to resell it. And there's, like we mentioned, how the buying fees work using an agent. It's because the sellers incur a lot of those fees. So when you go to sell it, it usually takes 1.5 to 2 years, sometimes less if the market's really going up the way it is now. But you don't want to make these mistakes and have to sell the home right afterwards, and you're going to lose a lot of money. And so we need to make sure we are very detailed on this process. I just had somebody come in my office last week, and they were kind of pressured into buying a lot out in Eagle Mountain. And soon after, they had buyer's remorse. They've only owned it for 3 months, and they're probably going to lose $10,000 on this lot because for one, they overpaid, but for two, with the selling fees now associated, they're going to have to incur those. And so, but they're just so set on selling it. But isn't it unfortunate that they didn't go through the specific process with the person that helped them? And so they didn't use us, but now they're basically going to take this big hit because they didn't know the process, they weren't educated, and they had somebody that was more self-interested in making a dime than protecting their interests. And I hate those stories. But so just go through the process correctly, and you're going to be protected. Like it says here, it has, people say, well, can I cancel for this reason or that reason? In the due diligence paragraph there in the purchase contract, it specifically says anything up to the sole discretion of the buyer. So it doesn't matter what the reason you're going to cancel is. Just know you have control, and we can protect your interest as long as we have that checked off, and it is contingent upon that. There's also contingent upon appraisal and financing, and so that enables you to be able to make sure that the house appraises for what it's supposed to. And it also gives us the freedom and the protection to know that your financing is in order, that your rate is what it was supposed to be. And so a quick question here. Somebody asked about who pays for due diligence. That's the one thing that you're going to come out of pocket for, is during the due diligence process, you'll pay for your own inspection. Okay, so that's usually, like I said, $500 to $600. It could be a little bit less or a little bit more. And then there's also an appraiser that needs to come out and look at the home, and appraisal, and that's generally part of your closing costs. Okay.
That's part of the closing costs.
So those are really the only two fees, but you're not going to feel the appraisal because it's part of your closing costs. But that inspection is worth every dime to get that done. So let's go to the next slide. And as we're doing that, I've had a lot of deals where personally and working with clients that we went through the whole contract, all the dates, everything seemed really good. And then we did our pre-settlement walkthrough, and that's the walkthrough that we do, that we're entitled to do 7 days before closing to make sure everything's where it's supposed to be, that the seller didn't take out any appliances, and all those types of things. So that's the last piece of the contract that we're able to go through and just make sure that everything's as is. There's no big holes in the wall from the family moving out. So now we close, okay? And from there, what happens? We go to the title company. You're gonna sign a big thick packet of a whole bunch of forms with a lot of language in there that's gonna basically just commit you to that house and to pay back that loan. Okay, so once we close, it generally takes a day or so for your funds to come from Jeff. They go to the title company. You're gonna wire in your down payment, and then those funds are gonna get released to the seller. And then that title company is going to pay off their mortgage, and it's going to basically take them off record, and they're going to put you on as a new owner. That usually takes a day, and that's when you generally will get the keys. From then, we're going to help guide you through on switching utilities. With our team, what we do is from day one, we're basically fire hosing you tonight with all this information about the process. Don't be intimidated, and don't feel like you need to know everything, because we're so detailed with this whole process between what Jeff does on his side and what we do on our side, that we're going to spoon feed you along the whole process of what to do next, how to, which utility companies to reach out to, what you need to do for due diligence, what inspection company to hire, all this stuff. Just take a deep breath and know that we're basically, you're hiring us to be in the driver's seat, and we're going to guide you through this thing. And so you're going to have complete confidence on what to do. Okay.
Driving Miss Daisy.
So we're going to help you evaluate homes, and we're going to help make sure that you're making the very best financial decision, and then walk you through the details along the way. So alongside with that, there's a few things here. You notice that I already mentioned this, that 83% of people's retirement comes from their home equity. Guys, there's so much more that goes beyond just buying a good home and transacting a property and now being a homeowner. If you do this right and you learn how to make smart decisions on when you purchase a home, this is my favorite part about what we do, is understanding the remodel side, the construction side, and what things actually cost, and then what you get for resale when you do something to your home. That's the funnest part about our job. And what's going to happen? You're going to move into your home, and you're going to decide with your partner, your family, or whoever, hey, we got tax money coming down the road. We're going to have a refund. Let's put solar on our house. This is a great idea. Let's make sure that we don't. Let's. I've heard all these advertisings. I don't want to pay any more power bills. Well, guess what? You're going to get a solar company come out, and they're going to bid $30,000 to $35,000 to put solar on your house, and they're going to tell you that your house is now going to be worth that much money more. That's totally false. Your furnace is going to go out, or your furnace might need a tune-up or needs to be replaced. You're going to call 3 different furnace companies, and they're going to say, hey, listen, Joe, thanks for calling. We have a sale. We have the top of the line unit. It's only going to be $12,000 to $15,000, and so this is the best thing you could do for efficiency. This is the one you need to buy. Okay, you're going to basically hear from all these different sales people, because now as homeowners, you're going to be the audience of all these people that are going to come soliciting to you. Well, guess what? If you put in solar panels or the most expensive unit to your home, you're not getting any more resale value. In fact, most people that put solar on their house, they have to pay that off completely for the buyers in order to sell their house. If you put the most expensive HVAC system in your house versus the cheapest one, just because it's a new furnace, you're still going to be able to sell your house, and you're not going to see any dollar difference on the resale side. There's all these different numbers that goes into how much does it cost to finish my basement? Well, it costs $35 to $40 a square foot. You only get $15 back for resale. I'm giving you just a quick little touch of why it's important to have a kind of a concierge or a coach while you're a homeowner, so you can have someone that understands your timeline. Because if when you make decisions and you make these big purchases, it's essential you understand how long you're planning on living in the home, your time frames, your goals, what you need the home for, what the purpose of that home is, and then make decisions based off that. Because if you're planning on leaving in 2 or 3 years, and you make some of these different improvements or upgrades, you're going to be spending $2 to $3 and getting 50 cents to $1 back. So use us as a guide and make your home your best investment vehicle, because it will be, and it has been for me personally. This is another book we're going to give you. It's called How Money Works. I love this stuff. It talks about compound interest. It talks about the rule of 72. Have you ever heard of that? How many years does it take for your money to double based off the interest rate that you're getting? There's all these things that if you learn these principles and you incorporate that and work together with home ownership, you can have whatever life you really dream of, as long as you're disciplined and you learn how to budget correctly. That's what we get. You can tell how excited I get about this, but we just love working with the partnership that we have your back, and we're not just worried about tomorrow's transaction, but we can help you, your kids, your grandkids, your family be able to give yourself the very best shot to enjoy your very best life. That's what, to me, this is all about.
Absolutely. Well, let's change gears here a little bit. I'm noticing a lot of questions on here. We're going to kind of work backwards and answer some of these questions. There's a question on here. What's the benefit of going through a company like First Colony Mortgage instead of a credit union or bank? Well, you only ever want to use UCCU. Look, we're all pretty competitive with each other, and that's important to know. But the credit union actually has less fees and typically a better interest rate than your brokerage companies are out there. The only thing that may pop up, and I'm just being 100% upfront and straight with this, is, some lenders like First Colony, they have a relationship with a builder. And so if you're going to go work with their builder, they may give you, an extra $1,000 or $2,000 towards upgrades or something like that. Now, sometimes you can negotiate that. If you go in with your real estate agent, you can negotiate it and work that out. And so that, that's the only thing that could possibly happen. So the other question here, I've heard you can put down more earnest money, which might help you get a house over another possible buyer. True? How much earnest money needs to be put down?
Guys, this is a very specific question that's so contingent upon which house you're going to be putting an offer on. We have to find out information first before we ever there's no blanketed approach on how to make this happen. So we're going to call the sellers. We're going to understand what their timelines are, what their motives are, what's most important to them. some sellers could really care less about earnest money because they know a savvy seller knows that generally speaking, they're not going to be, the contract's contingent upon due diligence and all these other things. And so their earnest money really doesn't mean that much. Other sellers, earnest money might be their most important thing. And so that one's a hard one to say, but we need to understand and discover more about the seller and about how much competition there is before we just decide how much to put down. That's also, that conversation is going to help us know how to structure other parts of our offer so we can be competitive. But like we mentioned before, there's several strategies, and if you miss even one of these strategies, you're going to be going down the list of your possibility to be able to execute an accepted offer. So we'll get into the very specific as we coach you through each one of these offers and make sure that you got.
So in some cases, putting down earnest money might help. In other cases, it just might not.
Okay.
So if you put an offer down and earnest money, and then you walk away and don't want the house, you lose your earnest money. If they don't accept your offer, then you get it back, right? The offer and the earnest money are separate. So when you make the offer, once they accept the offer, that's when you would actually provide the earnest money.
So you have 4 days after acceptance as the requirement to turn that earnest money into the brokerage. So you don't have to give that right away. I have some people say, Brett, meet me at the house. I'm writing an offer on this home. I'm going to bring my checkbook. I'll have my earnest money ready. You don't really need to have it that quick.
Now, the other part of this, you said you lose your earnest money. No, you do not lose your earnest money. You can walk away from the home at any time during that due diligence without any ramifications. You get your earnest money back. The only thing you might pay for is that house inspection report. So the earnest money, we're very cognizant that we don't want you to lose your earnest money. So we're keeping track of those deadlines, making sure that everything's going according to plan, and communicating with you to say, are we ready to move forward? Are we good in this part of it? Are we hitting these deadlines? And then that way, if something comes up where you need to walk away from the deal, you get your earnest money back.
Now, just know that every contract is different. And in order for us to get an acceptance, there may be a conversation that you guys have with us, and we decide that we're not going to do contingent upon due diligence or financing and appraisal. That just means that you're not tying your earnest money to those pieces of the contract. So it's not like 100% that your earnest money is going to get back. It's very dependent on how we structure that offer, but you're going to be on the same page with us because you're the ones that's going to make those decisions. And we're going to basically be the custodians to make sure that your earnest money is protected.
There's a question, where does Brett work for? He has the Wild Real Estate team through Keller Williams here in Orem.
That's right. And feel free to jump online and type in Wild Real Estate Utah or whatever. You can read a bunch of reviews on us or UCCU, but you can research more on us there.
So comment here was, what should we do if we were using more than 50% of our credit limit on one card? Should we open a second credit card? That is an actual solution that you can use. You can. So if you had $2,000 on the card, you open up another $2,000 card and you moved $1,000 from one. So now you're at 50% on each one of those. That would actually improve your credit score. So that's not a bad way to go. If you can pay it down, that's obviously the best. Sometimes people do a unsecured loan to combine and consolidate their credit cards. Or, maybe they'll use their automobile. If the automobile has a bunch of equity in it, they'll use that to do cash out on their car loan to consolidate some credit card debt. There's some different strategies, but not a bad solution.
When we visit together, I promise you, if you have credit questions, we're going to give you a lot more specific details and examples that collectively that we've gone through. We have a whole tool belt full of them. So
yeah. How does home buying work if you plan on buying a lot and wanting to build? That's a whole different discussion. Typically, just as a quick rundown, you would buy the lot using a lot loan, and those usually require 20% down or more. And then after you get, you hire an architect to put your plans together, you hire a builder to get all of your cost to build done. Then you get a construction loan, which would pay off the lot loan and you do the construction loan, you go through the whole construction process, and then you do your long-term financing after that.
That's right.
How can you try to bring down your monthly payment when purchasing a brand new home besides some of the obvious, like improving your credit score, decreasing and eliminating debt, having a larger down payment, etc.? Is there any negotiating that can be done? So yeah, there's not a ton. This question, I think they're just trying to find somewhere in there might be something different. There are first-time home buyer grants. You can use that towards paying down your loan a little bit. If you were to do that, then that's going to reduce your payment. And if you get a lower interest rate, you can buy down your interest rate to help your payment go down, but then you're paying more up front. There's some different options. Every individual is going to be different. Every situation is going to be different. So it's hard to speak exactly to one specific situation. But he hit a lot of the obvious ones, or she did on that one.
There's one that says from Stacy, what? Oh, go up.
It's actually down here.
No, let's just read them up here too.
Yeah.
What improvements are best to what things to do to make your house improve in value? The quickest, easiest ones are carpet and paint, flooring type of things like that. Flooring's pretty expensive. You're about $3.50 on the low end for carpet and pad, but you're going to be $7 to $8 a square foot for laminate flooring, $9-10 for tile install, depending on what level. So there's so many things that go into it, but we know our numbers really well on that side. But anything that goes above and beyond flooring and paint, and even then, we need to look at the numbers on the comparables. We have to have a very specific conversation on, because before you make any of those type of improvements, you've got to know what your timelines are and why you're doing it, because generally speaking, you're going to spend a lot more than you're going to get right back out of it.
Someone actually followed up on one of the previous questions. Is it better to get the second card to use the limit, or to just pay it down a couple of times during the month? Look, if you don't have to open up a new credit card, it would be better just to pay it down, because you're going to get a hit for opening up a new piece of credit. So if you can avoid that, it would be better. Which branch do I work for? I work at the Lehigh location, the financial center off of the Thanksgiving Point exit. Thanks for asking, Amber. Where in Utah is the best city to buy your first house? That's a personal decision.
Yeah, you know what? Everywhere in really Utah, Salt Lake, and Davis counties, everything is just really just appreciating extremely well.
Yeah.
Now there's some types of homes, like townhomes, believe it or not, are appreciating more or quicker than other types of homes, not by a landslide, but but there's pockets of areas that appreciate better. But really, we really need to just focus on why you're buying a home, what your goals are, what your business objectives are, and then dial it in based off your custom situation. Then we're going to be able to really put you in the very best scenario that way. There's not really just a one answer.
What if you want to rent half the house? If it is not legal duplex, can we still factor that into the loan? No. There is one program. If you've already had a boarder that's been paying rent to you in a previous location, and now you're going to be moving to a new location, and that boarder is going to be moving with you and renting a room, if you can prove that's been going on for more than 12 months, then yes, you could use that income, but otherwise, no.
Never knew that.
Do you have more info on the first-time homebuyer grants? I've seen some info online, but some of it seems sketchy. Just Heather, give me a call on that directly. We'll get you my contact info. It's not sketchy. Your first-time homebuyer programs through Utah Housing, they're just great loans. Does UCCU lend to people for purchases of homes only within Utah, or can loans be used to buy homes as well? I actually do there's 2 or 3 loan officers who do out-of-state lending. I'm one of them. We do loans. In fact, I'm doing a refinance in California and a purchase in Oregon right now. So,
sweet.
What about getting a mortgage with no credit score after becoming and living debt-free? There is a program that potentially can show that you can be approved under Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac with no credit score. The problem is that you have to use the 620 credit score as determining your interest rate. So you really need to go back in and get a credit score, use one of those credit cards that maybe you haven't been using for a while. And you may have to do that for up to 6 months before they'll actually give you a score, but it is much better to have a score. If you've never had any credit before, that program I just mentioned won't work. You have to have had pretty substantial credit that you just haven't used in a while. And then sometimes, and even if that doesn't always give you an approval, but sometimes it'll give you an approval, but you're not going to get a very good interest rate. So it's important to keep a credit score going. Like before, what I said at one of the beginning comments, you got to know the game. And one of the games is to always have a score. So hopefully that answers that question. Does getting pre-qualified not pre-approved dock your credit, or is just a soft look? No, it's a hard look either way. So that's why it's better just to keep going and get the pre-approval. Can you give a brief rundown of buying a home with your spouse, joint account, credit score, credit lines, etc.? If you're doing it jointly, you actually get better rates for your mortgage insurance if you're putting like 3 or 5% down, for example. With credit, it's always the conservative side of it when it comes to mortgage lending. So you're going to take the lower of the mid credit score of the two borrowers. So if the middle credit score for one spouse is 750, but the other spouse is 700, we're going to use the 700 score. So just important to know that. We do use all the debts from both borrowers and all the income from both borrowers. So if one spouse doesn't have any income but has a lot of debt, a lot of times it's better to leave that spouse off of the loan so that you can qualify for more, since you don't have to count their debts against you. Does the first-time home buyer option also apply to buying an apartment in a condominium? Apartment is renting, that is not buying. But if the condominium, if there's a complex that's been turned into a condominium complex from an apartment, then you're actually buying a condominium. And yes, you would apply for that. That would apply to it.
So apartments are sometimes confused with condominiums. The difference is apartments are big complexes that you rent each unit. A condominium is the same exact thing, except for you own the separate units. You don't rent them.
There we go. How do we go about getting the books that you recommend? Well, we're just going to get we've got the list of everybody who's attending, right? And we're just going to get those out, or what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, so feel free to be proactive, and you can reach out to us. I believe our contact information is on the invitation, but can we type this out to the group? Is my phone number is 801.
I'm gonna just type it.
Okay, put it in there, and then we'll put in both our emails and our it's wildbread@gmail.com.
I know, I'm just trying to type in.
So we'll get those books to you in person, and then there's just a lot of good information there that'll answer a lot of the questions you still may have, and then we'll make sure we spend a lot of individual time to get you up to speed.
Put a type in your phone.
What's the next question? I know it was originally planned to end at 8. I need to leave the workshop. Can I still receive the books and attend bonus mention? Yes, you can. Just make sure you tell us that you were on the webinar tonight. Let's just tell them what we plan on doing. Anybody that's on this tonight, we have a package that if you use our team to help you purchase or transact a property, and then UCCU and Jeff, then we're going to contribute $1,000. We're going to put $500 each towards your closing cost package. So we'll take care of you there. So make sure you note that. That's a pretty big value. So we're happy that we can do that for you, as well as give you these books. What else we got?
I'm so sorry. I'm going to skip through here. Perfect. How much can we expect to pay a month for mortgage insurance? It depends on the product, Amber, the loan product that we choose. And for you and your situation, whether it's FHA, conventional, USDA, each has their own different mortgage insurance premium. So we'd have to talk about your particular situation. Can shared assets, for example, CDs jointly owned by myself and parents, be used to qualify? Yes. We just have to get a letter stating from the other party that's not part of the loan that you have 100% access to that money. What if we are employees and have free closing costs already? If we are employee of the credit union, you would credit union, there is a discount for that type of deal, but the extra money that Brett was talking about would be just added to that, so you would get both. Hopefully that answers that question. Woohoo! Go Amber. So
Is that it?
we may have missed some questions at the very beginning, but I think we'll probably end there. Unless you guys have any additional questions.
We have heard that if you have something like a car loan, it could actually hurt your credit to pay it off before applying for a mortgage. Is this, and it depends, or which is better, paying it off or not?
Again, it's kind of an individual situation. So you might be in a situation where your debt to income ratio is too high for a car loan, and to have an extra car loan on there. So paying it off is really the only option in order to get you done. But if we pull your credit and we already have that, and then you go and you pay it off and we get documentation that you've paid it off, it's not going to have any effect on whatever your credit score was before, because that credit is good for 4 months and we don't have to update it. So in a lot of cases, it's just never going to make a difference. What credit score is your mortgage scores based off of? FICO 2, 4, 5, or 8? I don't know. There are some different scoring models. I know that the mortgage industry is going off one of the earlier models, and so it's not one of the newer models. But I couldn't tell you exactly the model that we use. What are the qualifications needed to refinance? Can you do that whenever you'd like? Yeah, just yes, you can do it. You usually have to make at least 180. It has to be 181 days from the time that you have the loan. So usually that's 5 payments before you can refinance. Is typically the way that works. But other than that, there really isn't any other qualifications. The only thing that would stop you from being able to refinance after you purchase a home is if the value was actually going down. That could be a major issue, but we haven't seen that in a long time.
Hey, everybody. Thank you. It's been good. I hope this has been meaningful and worthwhile to everybody on the call. There may be other questions that we promise we're going to answer thoroughly. We want you to have complete clarity and confidence as we move forward. But thanks for spending your time with us, and we'll take great care of you, and we'll get you in a custom plan and approach so that we give you the very best outcome and build a strategy that works for you. So anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Well, I don't want to leave these two hanging with their last 2 questions. So what about student loans? Student loans are included in your debt to income ratio, even if they don't have a payment. We are required to either do 0.5% or 1% of the balance as your payment to count towards your debt to income ratio. So keep that in mind. Is there usually a standard amount of time that you need to work at your job before you can purchase a home? That depends. You need to have a 2-year work history, but if you're in a salaried full-time position, then you pretty much only need 30 days of pay stubs to be able to qualify. There are some caveats to all of that, but typically 30 days would be the standard answer. Thanks again, you guys. You've got all our information. We're looking forward to working with you guys going forward here and being your real estate team. Appreciate you taking your time out this evening and being with us, and just really enjoyed providing this information to you, and like Brett said, giving you the fire hose approach and giving you so much knowledge in a short period of time. But we're happy to talk with you going forward. Thanks again, everybody.
All right, we'll be in touch.